You're welcome to Ways Exclusive, and on this special episode, we will be having a chat with a businessman, an architect, and a politician. Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour is a friend of the house, and we're super happy to be having him after such a long time.
Happy to be here. Always happy to be here.
Yeah, so I'm super excited having you to have this conversation. So I wanted the political whatever to die down because for me, beyond politics, there
Hmm.
are some things that needs to be said, and there are some things that just we just have to put it out there because those are important things that
Yes.
eventually makes life easy and makes governance easy for anybody.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's why we decided to couch this conversation, right? The architectural outlook of a mega city.
Okay. Interesting.
And we said, what better guest to bring other than the architects
Of a new Lagos.
of a Lagos that would be our Lagos, right? Yes,
Yes.
So I mean,
Yes.
it was really important that we could blend that mix, right?
Mm.
Having the expertise and also the political side of
Yes.
the conversation, so we
Yes.
have
Yes.
something a bit more holistic and maybe feasible,
Yes.
yeah, in terms of like implementation.
Hmm.
All right, so I mean, when I look around and I hear how we throw words like, oh, Lagos is a mega city, Lagos is a mega city, how realistic or how true is that? And what's your definition of a mega city?
Well, that's a very good one. So, in my opinion, a mega city obviously first stems from the population and the density, per square meter relative to. So you have your land mass and number of people that are there. So that's how you calculate your population density. Obviously, some places are more dense than others. So, for instance, you cannot compare density of a Jeremy Feludun to the density of Ikeja GRA or Ikoyi. Um, so that tends to be the foundation of what you would call a megacity: population and high density. The second aspect of it is the infrastructure that's supposed to exist for life in that megacity to thrive. And the third aspect for me is um, doing development and building out a city in a way that is not to the exclusion of the majority of people. So, for instance, you cannot say you have a mega city where you are constantly pushing people out, and what you define as your win in terms of development is at the detriment of the many. So you have a situation where you're constantly pushing people out of slums, or what you've called slums, and then building high rises that 70 to 80% of people cannot afford. And then you call it a mega city. No, you have a mega slum, right? A mega city is one in which um, every group of people, every class of people, um, every income bracket has the ability to experience, you know, their city. So I remember I was with an older Igbo of mine, and he came to visit me in London, and he said, "You know, the beautiful thing about London, um, it's expensive to move around by tube and all of that, but there are alternatives. There are trains that might be slower, but they exist. But aside that, when you stay within your particular area, there's enough for you to do. So every local government or every borough is developed in itself so that you don't need to go all the way across Third Mainland Bridge to experience beautiful restaurants or, galleries or things like that. Every borough has something independent that is its own jewel, that is its holding. So a unique, not a unique, a well distributed form of development. Also, the ability to experience a city and enjoy it for free. So, for instance, and he talked about you can walk down streets. You know, you can walk down streets and experience buildings that are beautifully laid out, planning that is well holistic and well coordinated. So there's a wholesome experience visually. Um, and then you also have a situation where you have parks that you can go for free. You can go sit down there and take the sun or whatever. You have museums and exhibition spaces that are constantly putting up what they're showing and artists in residence that you can experience for free. You have museums, galleries, different things that create an experience of being in that city. And it's not limited to, or it does not screen you out based on how much you have in your pocket. Yes, there are things that you have to pay for, but there's also that underlying experience that you can enjoy even though you don't have a certain amount of money. You come to Lagos, you see that most of the prime real estate has privatized most of the beaches in Lagos State. There is no real public beach that people can go to. And it doesn't even have to be a beach, just the ability to be able to sit by the water and just take it in. So for instance, if you look at in Boston, the way they designed it, in the Cambridge area, there's a river called the Charles, right? Then the MIT building is about 15 to 20 meters set back from it. Then there is now a sitting area and a park that the public can just come sit on a chair and look at the river, look at the Charles. And there is that whole space. Then there are some boat houses and stuff, but there is enough, even with the boat houses, there are step downs right to be on the water. You know, it's been paved, designed for public gatherings, right? And that's what I mean when I think about a Lagos that works for everybody. So yes, you can have a house that has a water view, but for people to experience that water view, you don't have to be a billionaire. There should be a part that's open, that's designed specifically for the public to be able to enjoy that, to be able also to be able to enjoy amenities that come with that as well.
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting how you're talking, and I'm just hearing in my head because my son is abroad schooling
Yeah.
right now, and I remember when we were trying to map out what his monthly expense would look like, right? Taking the tube was going to be, I think, about, a little bit higher than if he took the bus. The bus was going to
Yes.
mean that he was going to have a longer travel
Journey,
time,
commute.
meaning that he had to wake up early to catch the bus and all, and he must be on time. I said, well, this will keep you
Yeah.
disciplined,
Yeah.
right? And he's been doing it fantastically well, and he's saved a lot of money because if you multiply that
Yeah.
by how long he's lived there, you will now realize that that's
It's
a
a
lot
huge
of
amount.
huge savings,
Yeah.
which he can channel that money
So other
towards
things.
probably food
Yeah.
or other things,
Yeah.
right? And that's the beauty about when I see other parts of the world, when I go to other parts of the world, that's the beauty. Your pocket, now your pocket. What I can afford, I can afford.
Exactly.
But you don't see that here. And that is really worrisome. But you actually kind of laid a very good foundation for this conversation, because it's then leading me, towards, Lagos. Lagos is the postal city when they are talking about mega city. And they look the same Lagos. I say, now the same Lagos with me and you, how do we quantify it? So if we want to break down different things that makes up, which you have really mentioned, right? Infrastructure, the transport system, facilities like medical facilities, educational facilities, housing, you touched on it, right? If you break down those, those different aspects of what makes up the mega city, how well are we doing in Lagos?
Well, we're doing extremely poorly. And you see, the blessing of Lagos is also the curse of Lagos. In the sense that because Lagos has had such a rich history going back, I'm talking about 1700s, right? It attracted the Portuguese, the British, the returnees that came back, the indigenous people that were here, the Benin Kingdom, that Lagos was under sovereignty to. So many different people have come and made an impact, right? The Dejos, the sort of system that they then created with the Benin Kingdom, So it's been very exposed and has had such wonderful development. And then you then bring it to colonialism with the British. And then also it was at a point, Lagos was Nigeria. All the decisions that were being made in Lagos, right? And then it also became the capital of Nigeria before it was moved. So there's been a lot of focus and attention on it. But the problem is that a lot of people that have moved to Lagos that don't carry those stories, so they don't really know what Lagos used to be. That's why it's always easy for them to think of Lagos as a poster child that is this thing without really understanding all what it used to be. It's very hard to communicate the glory of Lagos to somebody that is coming from a a town
Or a village,
or a
which
village.
is what we see a lot of
Yes,
migration.
and they come and they're like, wow, there is a third mainland bridge. There is this, and it was so wonderful. But third mainland bridge was built under Mobolaji Johnson. Alhaji Lateef Jakonde was about to do a train system before Buhari came and shut it down. Imagine if he had done that. We will not be talking about blue line or red line today, right? So Lagos had been ahead of the pack because the people that had been in Lagos were not comparing themselves to the rest of Nigeria. Lagos was an independent colony and they fought for it, right? From the British. There was a time when Lagos was being governed from Ghana, right? Lagosians fought to have the administration in Lagos, right? There were times where Lagos was, for 2 years, Lagos was part of the Western region. Lagosians fought to take Lagos State out of that. And in doing that, they sacrificed all the investments in Odua investments, right? So if you notice, only under Governor Ambode that Lagos State became part of Odua investments again. Because Chief Awolowo's pushback was that if you are going to be independent, you cannot be a part of Odua investments and all the wealth that is generated from that. And they chose independence over that wealth. So there's been that idea of the center of excellence and comparing themselves with other city-states. It's never been comparing themselves with
other mega cities across the world.
And with other mega cities across the world. That's what they were comparing themselves to. It's never been comparing themselves with other states in Nigeria. And that's the problem. So if you sit down with a Lagosian that knows what his grandfather did in Lagos and knows the story and the greatness of, there was, as far back as 1910, water was being supplied into people's homes all across Lagos. They increased the tariff and the people protested. So now you need to think about the system. There was a system where water is being supplied. There was a system where tariffs were being given. And there was a system where people were paying and it was increased and people protested. That's something you take for granted. In Lagos Island today, there's nothing like that. There's no water corporation supplying water to anybody. I'm telling you what we had in 1910. You could open the tap and drink water.
So what went wrong?
No,
so what exactly, because again, is it feasible? Because I remember growing up in the north. I was born and bred in Kaduna. And I remember that we used to have water, right, from the government. So we pay our electricity bills. Not now that, when I came to down south and I started seeing people doing borehole, it was strange to me.
Yes.
Because that was not how I grew up. I never knew. Yeah, we had wells, but we had water from the water corporation, the water board, right? So how did it go? Where did we miss it? Is it the burden of the infrastructural design that kind of like stopped that process from continuing? Because there was really nothing that would have stopped it from working even after so many years. So what made it stop?
I believe that Lagos stopped having visionary leadership. You see, you don't design and develop a city for its current situation. You design and develop a city for a future projection, right? When you look at when they built the McGregor Canal, if I remember, late 1800s, early 1900s, it was huge. And at the time, there was no need to build a canal that huge. And you find that as Lagos has expanded, they've eaten into the McGregor Canal, but the people that were designing and developing it were developing it for decades to come, right? And you think about Third Mainland Bridge as well. You think about the kind of work that Alhaji Lateef Jakonde was doing. It was not just about what we needed now, it was about the vision for the future. And you see that has been severely lacking. And I think that's also been severely lacking because now the development of Lagos is tied to the ability for a certain cabal to make money. and benefit of that development. And that has tied and held Lagos back. You see it in whether it's the bus transport systems where a member of somebody's family is also in charge. You see it in land allocations. You see it in wetland protection policies and our drainage systems. You see it in just haphazard and filling of land across Lagos State without any holistic plan. So you see it also in our drainage systems. You see it with Eco-Atlantic EIA that was done, but unfortunately, is now water is now affecting indigenous communities all across Ikorodu, along the coast. You see it with the way our canals have been built and they've not been channeled properly. And now people are demolishing homes, and you have even the canals that are there overgrown with weeds. So corruption, a lack of following on that spirit of excellence that our ancestors and our forebears left for us, and just a lack of the history of Lagos. You see, people try to conflate the history of Nigeria with the history of Lagos. Lagos has such a rich history, very, very powerful history, because Lagos had its own story. You know, when you look at the Oyo Kingdom, Oshun, Ife, the wars, everything, they had their story, very rich story. Lagos also had a very, very rich history. And, you know, that history needs to be brought more to mind so that people can understand the uniqueness of Lagos and why it achieves such excellence, so that we can capture that essence again. And also, to go back to a question that I don't feel has been fully answered, in terms of the idea of this mega city. You see, Lagos State, Lagos, became what it did because the people always welcomed the visitor from day one. Look at the Dejo and our first Oba Ado, and the whole story with him. Yes, some people try to conflate it, but we know what happened. You go and meet them in Lagos and they'll tell you the truth. But you see how the Aworis managed to keep the Dejos, managed to keep the land, and they are the landowners, but administration was run by a king nobility that came from the Benin Empire. And if you understand how heavy, how massive Benin Empire was at the time, Lagos was the water-facing part of that empire. Now, you then had the Nupes that came, Oshodi Takpa that came, you know, the returnees that came, and all of them were given a place of pride as well. Yes, there might have been some little conflicts, but all of them were given a place, and they had such great impact on the city. Even the British, to an extent, a number of them came with stores and investments that came. All of these contributed. It was a welcoming city, and that contributed to the development and the fast-paced development of Lagos, or what the colony, the crown colony of Lagos, which then became Lagos State. You know, and that essence was always constantly looking for a certain quality in terms of development. And this brings me back to the idea of a mega city. A mega city must always be done to ensure that nobody is left behind. That's where there is success. It's not enough to just push people out, evict people, then Sandfield, build high-rise and say, oh, look at my city. No. You cannot have all of that in the midst of so much slum. Development cannot be, oh, we look like Dubai, when majority of your people cannot afford to live in Dubai. The thinking and the success in a city is creating a city that works for the people in that city, and everybody having a place to stay and a place of pride. And I mean, you look at England, even London, the city. Not everywhere is Mayfair. Not everywhere is sparkling. You have Peckham. You have different places.
The slums,
you have the slums, or what you will call the slums, the
yeah.
ends, all of that, right? At the same time, there's housing that's been provided
for them.
Housing,
and
decent housing. The housing does not have to match Mayfair housing, but housing and shelter have been provided. Transport systems to get them into the city has been provided. Healthcare has been provided. Schools have been provided. So you are not, I was in ISL. When I was in Nigeria, when I went to secondary school, I went to International School, Lagos. That was in Unilag. I will go, by the time we're living in Ikeja, we'll go from Ikeja all the way to Yaba, right? And then come back. Like, that is not supposed to be. Quality development
So
is,
it means that in every region, you are supposed to have, just like what we have abroad, where your child cannot go beyond a certain
yes,
number of meters
yes,
when they are going to school.
yes,
The same thing with healthcare. You must have
yes,
a primary healthcare system that can cater to the people within that
yes,
vicinity.
yes,
Same with recreational centers,
exactly.
right? You should have recreational centers where people can go to, same with the transport system. Everything should be within. So it means that if we map out Lagos now, if we want to define Lagos to say, okay, tomorrow Lagos becomes a mega city, how many hospitals are we looking at? How many institutions are we looking at in terms of educational institutions, like government owned, or not the one that we have all the private schools splashed all
Yeah,
over
of
the place?
course.
How many hospitals? How many what's it called, educational centers? What kind of transportation system? If we truly want to quantify Lagos as a megacity, what should we be looking at in terms of those kinds of infrastructure?
So the first step will be to creating a much more well, evenly developed city, right? So we're talking about opening up Ikorodu, opening up the Badagry axis, because everything,
The
Lagos,
Ekpe is
yes, Lagos started in Lagos Island, right? I mean, that's where the ships came,
And started
everybody was
spreading.
coming, and then spread along the Badagry, along that Badagry axis, human trafficking, slave trade. That was the commercial aspect of it, right? And then started going inwards, inland. So you want a much more equally developed city. So you want to open up that access and connect it well. So I've constantly spoken against the fourth mainland bridge. I think it's a waste of money. I think it's only just going to create another third mainland where everybody is in traffic on the road. I'm in more favor of a belt road type of design that's connecting the Bejuleki side to the Ikorodu side and connecting it, at the shortest distance between the water there. By doing that, you're opening up that place, opening up the foreshore, and then you're also now creating opportunity for more people to develop that area. Then you now need to connect that place very, very well with train system, mass transit, so that I can be able to get to Lagos Island or to the center of Lagos in 30 minutes, right? So I don't feel the pressure to have to live on the island, to have to live in
Because
Lekki.
I can't even afford it.
So there is that. Now, so once you've done that, you've opened up Badagry axis and then created it to be like a nucleus. So you are building things based on comparative advantage. So you can look at Badagry and say, we want this to be an art tourist area. It has the history of the slave trade.
Everything.
It has the beach. So we're going to create this art cultural center here that's going to be a hub and magnet that's going to pull people here. Ikorodu, we can look at, aquaculture, aqua parks, wetland protection. And by doing wetland protection, you're also going to give a value to that land in the sense that this land cannot be developed for anything. It's a place that's going to soak water up for us, so we're going to be paying the local government there a certain fee to prevent development from happening there. Right, and then turn it into something that generates money. It can be something that is a solar power park, right? Sustainable energy park. So it's generating energy, is useful, but then it's also a tourist attraction. There can be a school or a manufacturing place for solar panels there, right? Why not? We can center that there. Okay, we're giving land to people to come and start making solar panels here. Anything that has to do with sustainable energy, you people can be located here and build infrastructure around that to encourage people to come there. Right? So every region should be like a nucleus that has things around it. And that should happen across all local governments. So in every local government, you should have a proper hospital. A proper hospital. One that, is attracting best talent in the form of medical staff. People are being paid well, very well equipped, and then you can then have specialist hospitals in senatorial zones. right? So you should be able to go from your primary healthcare center
To a
to a quality hospital that can give you what you need, and then all in your local government. And then if you need specialist attention, you then go to the senatorial arm, which I would, if it was me designing it, I would do 4 divisions, like break Lagos West into 2. You know, so the Ikeja division and Badagry division, and has specialist hospitals in 4 of these things. And then schools, very, very important. You find that when you look, for instance, in Lagos, there's a huge amount of schools, Lagos Island, but then when you look at other parts, there you don't have that many public schools. But also equipping the schools, ensuring that they are well paid, because this is the thing, and it goes back to a mega city. You see, my grandfather, his driver, the child of his driver used to be in the same school my father, right? There was a time where you could do that. Now, that driver did not need to be thinking about how he has to get all this money to send his child to private school. That's that social safety net that is there, that then allows for people to be able to earn a decent wage, but understand that that social safety net is going to take care of a number of things like education for your children, healthcare. And you can pay your taxes on what you earn, but you are not pressured to do all of that. Now, that then affects people's openness to corruption and being corrupted, because that pressure is not there. You also have a situation where you are now having a situation where you are living in closer proximity with your family, because now your children can go to the same school that your God's child is going to, and clearly your God's child is not going to a school that's far from where he lives. And this goes back to what I say, what Lagos used to be. A lot of people they don't know, because they don't have any family.
Right now, to carry a child to kindergarten, you need an arm and a leg.
You understand?
Because you dare not carry your children to public schools in Lagos.
I mean, but you see, these are the problems. And if people don't know this history, they are easily fooled, and they don't understand. And this is where this whole indigenship, Lagosians keep talking about having a say in their affairs, because there are so many stories that a lot of folk just don't have. They don't know. So their motivation and drive is different. You hear a Lagosian talk about they want to restore Lagos to glory days, and you're thinking, which glory? But you don't know.
I mean, so it's interesting how, you're actually, just going in line with, some of the questions that I had planned. Now, the essence for this conversation, we know a lot is going around in Nigeria. But you see what I have decided in my lifetime, that I'll focus on the things that are important that needs to be said.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why we're having this conversation. You talked about the leader, because I want us to go back. I wrote here, I said, how should a leader of a mega city be thinking? What should be the mind of that leader? Do you get what I'm saying?
That's
because it's very key, very important.
That's a beautiful question. Leader for a mega city must be extremely futuristic. When I say futuristic, I'm not talking about, you must be this tech bro. No. You must be thinking 10, 20 years, because this is one. There are some factors you need to understand, especially for Lagos. One, Lagos is listed as a sinking city. So you must be thinking about innovative ways to ensure that you protect Lagos over the next 50 years. It's not about the rain that's falling today. The next 50 years. I give you an example of Japan. They have this rain system. The name will come to me. It's about 30 meters. Each cylinder is about 30 meters wide by, I believe, 60 meters high, linked by about 6 kilometers under the ground to be able to take water.
Wow.
It has pumps that pumps out 200 tons of water per second.
Wow.
Yeah. I remember the name of this thing. I mean, if you just Google it, it's just outside Tokyo. Now, the amount of flooding that they planned for is something that usually happens every 200 years. And Tokyo still gets flooded. But these are the things they've put in place. So you see that those people are not thinking about today. They're not thinking about, rain is falling today. No.
This next rainy season.
Long term. And thinking long term then creates innovations that you don't see anywhere else in the world. I want a situation where Lagosians understand that their leaders are not, they are creating solutions that the world is looking at. Because Lagos is peculiar. So you need a leader that can look and try to solve problems, not just the status quo, because that's all they know. No, you need to be thinking ahead. Secondly, Lagos State, this belt that we are on, Lagos going into Togo, going into Ghana, is projected the next 40, 50 years to be one of the epicenters of population, right? So that brings in opportunities in terms of trade, in terms of commerce, in terms of linkages. So we now need for Lagos to be thinking as a city-state. What can we do to move commerce, to move transportation between these cities so that people that are resident here can benefit? Thirdly, Lagos State, by rule of thumb, is always going to house a minimum of 10% of our population in Nigeria. It has been like that for quite some time now. So we can go on that and assume that maybe it might go up 15% if insecurity increases. Because, you know, there's a lot of migration also due to insecurity in the north and middle belt. People move down to Lagos. So your projections must also be taking that into account, knowing that Nigeria at some point in the next century will be about a 400 million population country. So you should be planning to house about 40 million people.
I would say 50.
Or 50. Your infrastructure should be thinking towards that. Your housing plans, your healthcare plans, your local government arrangements, they should be thinking towards that, right? And I don't see any of that going on. So when I think about the leadership that Lagos deserves, is that kind of forward thinking. You are solving problems for tomorrow, not just problems that exist today. And that will then guard how you spend your commonwealth. You see, you look at the Norwegians, the people, Finland, those kind of people that have huge sovereign wealth funds, and they also have oil, but they don't let that oil money come into their economy. Why? Because they are thinking about tomorrow. They have oil, but they are one of the biggest investors in sustainable energy, in alternative energy, in solar panel production, all of that. They're not just thinking we have oil today. They're already envisioning the next energy production, and they have invested there for generations unborn that are coming. Now, that mentality comes from the reality that, you know, these are people that for a long time they don't have sun. So they have to be very disciplined with the way they farm, with the way they store their grain, with the way they use it, because they are not thinking about today. You see that thinking? That's why they can make decisions. So you now see that you look at the education system in these in these Nordic countries, high. They are doing, you know, revolutionary things in terms of the way they use to teach people to problem sets.
They're educating their children for the future.
Exactly.
That future that they see.
That is it. That is it. They use problems to teach. So it's not a topic of chemistry. There's a problem, and they will apply chemistry, physics, biology, and math to solve that problem, and then they learn those principles, as opposed to just cramming Faraday's law, Boyle's law, this law, this law.
Divide the X.
You understand? So it's application, applied knowledge. And these are things as well. Understanding that Lagos is constantly going to be attracting the best talent from all across Nigeria. How do you maximize on that? What kind of training programs do you have for this population? I mean, we should have the highest skilled population in Africa. We should be the place in Africa where Europe or China, now that they have a huge middle class, are not willing to do the jobs that they used to do before, can look and be like, these guys are highly trained, these guys are highly skilled, let's set up a plant there. Or the plants are already set up, let's manufacture our products here. That is where we should go, because that is our population and that is our strength. But now you hear people, bigoted people, talking about that population as a weakness, causing fights, you know, doing things, and you look at the names of these people and you don't see anywhere in the annals of Lagos history to the 17 or 1600s where they made any impact, where they made any positive thing to Lagos. You don't know them. In Lagos, there's the saying, Amorawa, we know ourselves. Because you see, the Lagos identity was built based on a struggle. And that's why so many different groups of people come together and say, we are Lagosians. These people came together to say, we want to be independent from the Western region, we want to be independent from the British, we want to be independent from from being ruled from Ghana. We want to have our own legislature, separate from the national legislature. In that whole struggle, an identity was formed, and an identity that believes in excellence, welcoming people, and creating that enabling environment for people to thrive. And that is the key. That is the secret to the success of Lagos. And that's why you cannot take that ingredient out of Lagos and think Lagos will succeed. Right? Because that ingredient is not in all these other states. If not, you see multiple Lagos in other states. I mean, you look at a state like Ondo. Ondo has a water-facing side of it. Ilaje, that whole place is water-facing.
And yet they've not been able to achieve. They've not. I mean, I was going to come to what is the hope of Nigeria when Lagos is struggling. But you know what? Let's take a very short break. I mean, this has been a really, really insightful conversation. I am not one that sensationalize things, but for me, I try to think forward. I try to think solution when there's a challenge. I know we have a problem in Lagos. I know we have a problem in Nigeria, right? We're not able to harness the resources that we have. We're struggling with that. And, if we're able to successfully get it right in Lagos, I think it will trickle down every other state. But you know what? Let's go on a break. When we come back from that break, we'll continue the conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, thanks for staying with us. Now, if you just tuned in, we're having an amazing conversation, right? We're discussing the architectural outlook of a mega city. And there's no better person to have this conversation, trust me when I say so, other than our guest, Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour. He's a politician, he's an architect, and he's also an entrepreneur. And, it's such an honor to have you. Honestly, I do not take your presence for granted, because there's something that gives me joy when I'm having conversation. This is what I need to be hearing, So, I mean, you're just hitting it, spot on. Yeah. So when I was prepping for this conversation, right, I wrote 3 leaders down. I have not been in Lagos before Fashola's time.
Okay.
So let me base it on my myopic stance, right? Fashola, Ambode, and Sanwo-Olu. Those are the 3 governors that I've experienced. And in my opinion, right, correct me if I'm wrong, I saw the trajectory of Ambode's administration. I saw where he was going. I mean, for the first time, I actually really believed that a mega city was going to be achievable with a Governor Ambode. But unfortunately, you said something, Lagos is peculiar. You're dealing with people that are interested in the now. What can I eat now? I don't care what is happening. I want to eat it now. Yeah, he might have had issues around people management. I think he should have better managed the people. But he had the vision. He had foresight. I mean, with what he was trying to do with the vision scheme. I mean, there were so many things that he was doing. You could tell that this guy had plans to make Lagos a mega city. So, if somebody like that had so much vision and all of that, and yet his tenure was cut short, what's the hope, for transforming Lagos? Are we not where people just feel like we just like the status quo? Let it remain like that.
No, I don't think that's where we are. I think for the most part, okay, so this is a very deep question and it's multifaceted. Let's start from the APC. Then we'll talk about the people and we'll talk about opposition politics. So the APC in Lagos State has built this structure, this monster that must feed on and succeed mainly based on state capture. And it is in that when you hear about Alpha Beta, I mean it is disgusting that there are children in Lagos State that are sitting on the floor They don't have tables. I mean, you've seen the state of some schools in Lagos State. You've seen the state of our healthcare centers. You've seen the amount of people that are homeless in Lagos State. And there's somebody that's getting a percentage, just a rent seeker, a percentage of a deal or arrangement that had been done decades ago. That's state capture. You have a situation where the blue line is estimated by construction people at a certain amount and it's times 10 on the books of Lagos State. Huge amounts of money are being spent on consultation, even more than the project itself. So there's a state of transparent opaqueness in our accounting, in a lack of transparency, and just appropriation of the Commonwealth of Lagos, and also a lot of debt. That when you look at the monies that we owe, the monies that they claim they make in IGR or that they put out there compared to what we've gotten from the state, it's not matching up. A huge amount of Lagos is developed based on private individuals and businesses. So there's that. Now, Governor Ambode, I'm in complete. I mean, first, before I talk about Ambode, I always must talk about Alhaji Lateef Jakonde.
Yeah.
This man did. Based on watching this government in the last 2 decades, what he did is like a miracle. You are wondering, he did it with the civil service? He didn't bring angels down. This man completely changed the education system. Yes, some people fault him. People feel like in opening it that quickly, it reduced the quality of education to an extent. But there is nobody would tell you Alhaji Lateef Jakonde did not love his people. And this was a man, you see, you asked a question by a leader of a mega city, Alhaji Lateef Jakonde. This was a man that was thinking about Metro Line back then, in the 70s. Abi? In the 70s.
And the population was not even close to what we have today.
This was a man that was thinking about opening, look at what he did in Ojo, look at the housing he did. Everything I said, he literally defines and epitomizes it. So I always have to give him his flowers. But to Ambode is somebody that had a vision. It's uncontestable. It was during his reign that I saw a fire was happening in Ikeja and someone called the fire service and the fire service came. I saw it. I mean, I was like, wow. It was during his time where there was the rescue vehicles where your car stops on the road and the car would just come and tow it. And they did not charge money. That was shocking. I know a number of people that they know. Maybe they started charging later. I don't know. But the experience that I have first-hand information on is that they did not charge people. You know, those were innovative ideas. His idea about creating this kind of art district on Lagos Island, the Onikon side, was also very impressive. You see that he was thinking about generating tourist revenue and also creating the environment for that. Also, his understanding that art and creating this unique place of Lagos with art and culture will draw people in. And you saw what he did across Lagos State. Not just in the art objects, but actually theaters and things like that. That was also very impressive. And then the different art installations he did all over Lagos State. Yes, I feel that some of them were overpriced when I found out how much they cost. But when we talk about the vision of something, this was a man that had vision. So it's very painful to see a lot of those art things that he built. I mean, there's the one on Maryland, right? This nice what's the word? It's not a pillar. It's not a column even. It's a platform that had the different tribes of people of Nigeria, I think, and it was beautiful. Right, and it was just demolished. I don't even think it has been removed to somewhere else. And now I was in Ikeja this weekend. They moved Fellas on. After a lot of outcry. But then, to be fair to them, if you look at the way traffic moves now, I prefer it. Yes. I think that on that one, I give them kudos for that because the road design is much better now. But the one in Maryland, we've not seen any new road design. Now there's one advert, this square thing just advert that's very pedestrian and nothing too impressive. But so there's that. So and then what he was trying to achieve with Visionscape, you could see that he clearly recognized, and I say this all the time, after our huge human capacity, potential human capacity, the largest resource we have, secondly, well, now we have oil, but the largest resource we have is waste. Yes,
Waste,
and I've always said that. And he looked like with what he was trying to do, Visionscape, he recognized the value of that, and I really feel that he was trying to do that. But then you see, when state capture exists, there are a number of people in that machinery that must eat. And when innovation comes in, innovation is taking away
the
food from rent
mouth.
seekers, right? If you innovatively want to create a way for people to move around Lagos, you're taking away food from the NURTW and MCO lawnmowers that are accumulating billions without any benefit to their membership. Now, I have no problem with MCO lawnmower. I'm saying that the monies that they accumulate, does that money go around?
Yeah.
Is that money in an education fund that allows their members to be able to send their children to school? Is that money in a health insurance fund that allows their members to be able to go and get quality health care? Those monies should not just be accumulated to one person at the top of the pyramid. And then glorifying this concept of violence and aggression and thuggery. And the bureaucracy that they've now created and seems to be the only way that they can force themselves into positions of power. And all of this tie back into the mega city, because another major factor of a mega city is security.
Yeah.
Security is what allows for a 24-hour city. It's what allows for people to feel free
nightlife,
feel free walking in neighborhoods at night, allows for business people to stay open for long hours. That is an essential part of megacity. And security in a city is what is not seen. It's a feeling. So when you walk in London, you see big windows without any burglary proof. You don't see people moving around with their mopole and their hillocks. You are not seeing checkpoints, but you feel safe. That's what safety is. It's knowing that there's a camera that is in place, that if anybody tries anything, the system behind that camera will locate that person and find that person.
And there's a, what's it called? The person is properly registered.
And the person is registered.
Properly registered, that you can trace the person to wherever they are.
There's a system that does that, and these are the ingredients of a mega city.
So, because, I mean, like I said, you keep on touching my next line of conversation. Because, you see, Lagos, they say, is the fourth largest GDP in Africa, right? Generates the fourth largest GDP in Africa. Houses the largest and the busiest seaports on the African continent. I want to touch on this revenue generation, right? Especially the NURTW, the transportation system. Because every time they call Lagos a megacity, I say, no, it's not possible that you can call this a megacity. Because if you look at especially on Lekki-Ekpe Expressway, you're right, because I don't think I've seen them on those other sides. But even if they are there, because there are multiple outlets, they don't cause as much obstruction as the Lekki-Ekpe Expressway because it's just one channel, right? Yeah. What would a transportation revenue collection system look like in a megacity? Because I don't get why we have thugs, if you see sometimes, even at the detriment of their own lives, jumping after Danfo buses, jumping after the Korokwe, what they call the buses, especially around this axis, trying to get the 500 naira or the 200 naira. And like you rightly pointed out, these revenues are unaccounted for.
Exactly.
But they come in hundreds of millions on a daily basis.
Billions in a month. And that's what they show. I agree with you 100%. I feel that revenue generation must be digitized, must be automated, must be done in such a transparent way that those funds can then be used for certain things, and there will be no debate on what is the amount of money that is being generated. These young men that we have running over around buses and things, these are men that should be properly educated, have a handwork, be contributing productively to society, not being rent seekers and getting in the way of people that are working. They are not the owners of the bus. They're not taking any risk of the ownership of the bus. They're not paying any money for the maintenance of the bus, right? They're not fueling the bus.
Should they even be collecting that money? What
This is the
exactly is the
question.
money for?
This is the question. Now, there's an idea that there is some form of tax. Well, if this is some form of tax and is accruing to government or whatever body, how are these monies being used for the betterment of people? Because face it, it's the people that are paying that money. The bus drivers are going to calculate the
And
total
transfer the
and
cost
transfer the
right,
cost to the people.
right
So
to the
it's
people.
us that are paying. You don't look at it as the bus driver or the co-pay driver is one paying. No, that money is coming out of your pocket. So you should have a say in how that money is being used and what that money is being used for. And we have too many. This bureaucracy system that has been created in Lagos is wasting the lives of too many young men. It's also then tied to drug abuse. It's tied to the destruction of our social fabric. Because you see, there is a new sort of lifestyle that has become the norm in a state like Lagos State, with this huge population and this hustle thing, because you have to hustle, you not survive. There are no farms where you can say you go farm and you take your ham and just cook what you have to hustle and get money. But you see, you don't have how many stable homes are being created where children are going to be raised in a father in a two-parent household. That children are going to be given an average. Let's use the word average. An average start to confront the world ahead of them. How many? None. You see a child is being raised by the street. They are looking at a father that's standing on a corner chasing buses
And taking
drugs
and alcohol
and
very
all of
early
that.
in the morning.
Yeah, you have a major drug abuse problem in Lagos State. So we are now creating a situation where generations that are coming are going to, it's going to be a big mess. And again, forward thinking. Because if you are thinking about your tomorrow, you want a situation where you are preparing the people that are going to be heirs to what you are bequeathing them, which should be excellence and greatness. It cannot just be about today, right? And forward thinking, yeah. Visionary leaders that are forward
Visionary
thinking.
leadership. All right, Gbadebo, you're an architect. Let's talk real estate. Some people have accused our government, especially within Lagos State, that some of the projects that have happened, they would consider them white elephant projects because it's not going to have there's no end in sight. These are just avenues for them to embezzle.
Yes.
You agree with that? Because
100%.
again, let me land. Because again, with the coastal, I think one of the projects that have been pinned as a white elephant project is the coastal link.
Yes.
Eco Atlantic. I remember just watching, one of these guys on YouTube did a video on Eco Atlantic and how he was asking, what's the essence of this property when people are, like you rightly said, most of these properties, you do the sand fill, you build the properties, and it's not affordable. People cannot afford it. What should real estate look like in a mega city? Ikoyi, for instance, right? I don't believe that, sometimes I see those high-rise, they're just there, constituting nuisance, no occupancy, no nothing. Shouldn't we start to rethink some of these things and find a way that even in the midst of all those areas, we're able to build, what's it called, decent accommodation? Because, again, you said something earlier. You said your father's driver, right? Your grandfather's driver's son,
yes,
went to the same school with
son.
your father.
Yeah.
I mean, how can we make that possible in the Lagos of today? If we're not thinking, okay, they should live amongst us, right? In this neighborhood that we're in today, for instance, there should be cheaper housing, maybe like self-contained that are cheaper for people, affordable, accessible and all of that. So is that going to be even possible? And if it's going to be possible, what would it take for us to start seeing those kinds of transformation within our real estate?
That's a beautiful question. I talked about this a lot during my campaign. In England, the way they achieve it is that for you to get planning permission for any development, there must be an affordable housing component in it. So if you are designing a building that has 5 floors or 10 apartments, at least one or two of them must be the part that goes to the council or is in some way tied to the council. And that's the affordable component of it. So you find that some architects or developers will give like the worst apartments in
So
the
the
building
council,
to the council.
well,
So maybe the
it's still
one
not bad like what
but
we
this
have
is
here.
not bad because you now see somebody that might be lower middle class living in Mayfair, right? Because the idea, again, I keep saying, is not about making development and screening off people. There must be a way that they are plugged in. So that for me is policy. So for your planning permission, there are two things. One, you you can create that kind of policy. Secondly, part of development must also have, so just the way in planning you say that for every apartment that you build in your design, you must have one or two car parking spaces. Secondly, you must have, so in this also, planning regulation can be, you must have a certain amount of square meters for staff that's going to serve this house, right? And not just one staff, a family. Because we cannot continue a situation where fathers are not seeing their
Children.
children until the weekend. It's tearing up the shit we are going to be as a society in the next couple of decades. But then you see, the problem is we don't really have leaders that think. So the shit we write from them, they can't even understand it or put it
Because the more you
together.
continue to break the family unit down,
The
the
bigger
worse of
problem,
the worse of the
the bigger
community
problem,
the system will be.
Yes, and then it goes back to security, it goes back to so many factors that then create a sustainable city. So that's one, creating the ability for a man, just because he's working and with you, does not mean he cannot have
His
the space
family.
for a family. And putting pressure on people to do that, so that they also feel that, just like the way I want to get a new car, oh, I need to get more space for my staff that are working on me. You also look at, the example you gave, invest in our public education system. Norway does this beautifully. You cannot there's no private school, so everything is public school. And no matter how rich you are, all of you are going to that same school.
Yeah.
So you then find that parents are very involved. They're involved in the PTA, they're involved in everything to do with the school. So, and based on their involvement, whatever different perk exists in those schools is based on their involvement. But there's a basic platform that all of them have to fit into. So your driver, your maid, everybody is going to that same school, right? And that's what it really has to be, because you see, the more, like, a politician now, he has an SUV. What motivation does he have to do the road?
He doesn't. Oh.
He doesn't. He's not going to fill that pothole. So there's that. There's that as well, and that has to be something that's thought of on the long term and maybe a date set. So, for instance, the government can say, you know what, UNHCR or any of these UN bodies says that we should be spending 20-30% of our budget on education. So we're going to do this consecutively over the next 10 years. By the 10th year, anybody in public office can no longer send their children to schools outside of the public education
locality.
system or the locality. But you cannot just say, it's very nonsensical in my mind to say that, okay, if you are entering office today, you cannot send your children to private
that's
schools
not gonna
tomorrow.
be possible.
You have to solve the problem. Like, this took decades to rot.
So you
need to put in time,
also take
and
time.
you must also measure your success rates. Right? You can say today we're paying teachers 30,000 naira. Now we're paying them a living wage of 300,000 naira. And we're doing trainings and courses for them to take and improve. We have a team from Cuba that's coming to our healthcare system and doing partnerships and training to improve our healthcare service. This is what we are paying our doctors now. When you've done all of this, you can then say, okay, public servants,
You have to
You have to use this,
patronize what
right?
your
And that
infrastructure.
also goes to long-term
So
thinking
just
for a
to
mega
continue
city.
from this, right? So what would be the role of the local governments now? Especially now that we hear there's an autonomy. Whether it's on paper or it's reality, I don't know yet, because a lot of people are still arguing that all of those things are on paper, right? The governors are still kind of like somewhat in charge. If we say we're building a mega city, right, what would be the role of the local government in achieving that mega city?
For a mega city to work, you must have exceptional local government chairmen because they are the nucleus. They are the nucleus. They must be exceptional. They must be people that are tied into their communities. I mean, when there are council elections in England, they handwrite letters to each person. They come and tell you their plans. They come and tell you their vision for the community. Because guess what? It's based on the council taxes that people pay that the quality, it affects the quality of education, affects the healthcare center. But people must believe, right? We're paying these council taxes and all of that. And it's a very well-knit system. And that vision really makes a lot of difference because they are the closest arm of government to you. But unfortunately, first of all, we need a credible electoral system that produces
Better local government
quality
chairman.
local government chairmen. They cannot be lackeys of the governor. It cannot be a place where you reward
Compensationary positions.
positions. No, no, no. You need to have vision-driven local government chairmen, councillors,
But that can only happen
if
if,
we have a legitimate electoral process.
yes, if we, that's one. Secondly, if the enlightened amongst us begin to see beyond elective positions like the gubernatorial seats, the senatorial seats, commissioners, and whatever. I mean, what's it called?
Appointments.
Yeah, appointments and House of Assembly or
Yes.
State
Yeah.
National Assembly. If the enlightened amongst us begin to see beyond those, so I'm hoping that with these new the laws that have been passed about autonomy for local government, maybe cerebral people will begin to now go and put in their hat for the race. Because even if the electoral process is seamless and is clean, it's, today it's top notch. If they do not have the right candidates running for those positions, there'll also still be a problem.
I think the system also will bring people to the fore. I think that when people start to see effective local government chairmen that are visionary, that are making a difference, people will look to the local government and say, yeah, I'd like to do that. I'd like to be part of that. When I got in politics, I started by running for local government of Ikeja. That was the first protocol because I felt that if we can turn Ikeja around, it will have a ripple effect across the entire state, and also have a local government chairman that would stand up to the governor and say, I want to do this for my people. I don't want to be a glorified subcontractor, right? And that changes everything. So that's very important. And the local government chairman, the councillors are extremely, extremely important if you want to have a mega city.
Absolutely. I just
Extremely
want to
important.
commend at this point. I think I see one local government in this, is it Obalende now? At Fuad.
Yeah.
Because I follow him on social media and I see
Right.
his work. I mean, he went to Covenant University. So you would think that, he left a 9 to 5 to go and run. People thought he was mad, but you can tell that his style of leadership is completely different.
Of course.
From the rest. I don't even know any other person, but he's very intentional about showing the work, how the people are coming together, and he's been able to kind of like galvanize the people in his constituency to come together and bring funds to be able to solve some of the problems that they have within.
Fantastic.
I mean, he's doing well.
Fantastic.
And if we have more cerebral people like that going into those spaces, I think things will change.
Yeah, I think that, the problem that we currently have is because it's a state-run election and it's just really the governor putting people in place. I mean, if you even look at Oyo, the local government chairman say they are pulling out from the Union of Local Governments and they are with the governor on this. We need people that are also going to be able to stand and say, you know what, I'm an elected official and these are my rights by the Constitution and I have a vision for my people.
Awesome.
You know, once you have that kind of situation, it's the people that benefit. People benefit the most of that. And when you have people like you described him, they are going to do things very differently.
Absolutely, he's doing something different. All right, so on a final note, Gbadebo,
Yes.
speaking to mega city, our first point of call when you come into Nigeria, Biko, what should our airports begin to look like? Because you know what, I am tired. Well, the last trip I made, I actually landed at the new airport.
Yes.
Right? I think it was way better.
Oh, yes.
It was a breath of fresh air. But I feel like, you know, we can still do a lot more.
Oh, yes.
Because you see, the airport of every country tells how serious the country is or unserious. Whether you should do business with them or not do business with them. How important is it for us to be able to change, for us to change the game? So when people ask Lagos means business, it's because it's serious.
I like that line, Lagos means business. Yes, so. I like that. I'm going to use that. Lagos means business.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, like, you know, we don't say welcome to Lagos, say this is Lagos.
Yeah.
You know, so this is Lagos. Lagos means business.
Yeah.
I like that. The airport is a very important signifier. It sends a signal to anybody or whoever from wherever part of the world that of the kind of people that, you know, you are going to deal with. Because that's the place where all of us funnel in and funnel out. And then wherever you are going is based on your own experience or exposure or money. But that airport is the commonality that brings everybody into the country, especially as the international airport. The new airport is really nice in terms of relatively. I mean, I'm not going to compare it to...
At least better than where we're coming from.
Yes, definitely better. I hope they can maintain it and keep it at that standard for a good amount of time. I think that's usually what the problem is. But it's a federal situation, so it isn't really in the hands of the governor, you know, to be fair to them. Maybe that's where restructuring can come in. But generally, airports are federal things. Airports
in Nigeria. Because I remember watching a video, I think it was Liboro Soshuma that posted the video, and he was talking about, I can't remember what country now. He said the airport is being run and managed by the local councillors, right? It's not even it's not a federal...
An international airport?
Yes, an international airport. Was it Houston? It's one of the international... Okay. I mean, he posted that video, and he said that he was stunned because, you know, airports in Nigeria are managed... I mean, just imagine if, for instance, the local government chairman in charge of Ikeja or something is the one managing and running the airport, right? I mean, do you get what I'm saying? So, I mean, we need to start tweaking what governance is, what the executives should be, what should be their purview, what should be what, you know. So, I mean, when we begin to separate and filter those roles, I think it's easier for us to then understand, you know, the quality of the minds that will be needed at different positions, right? I mean, so if you had one final thing to say, because you see, Lagos is the hope of Nigeria. If Lagos gets it right, Nigeria would definitely get... I mean, it's just... I've seen a lot of governors, they've said it even several times. They'll come and say, we are just waiting for Lagos to do it. We'll just copy and paste, right? I mean, it's a joy for them to always want to pick our blueprints to say, you know what, they want to go and replicate. I see this thing in Lagos and I like it and I want to replicate it. So Lagos is the hope for Nigeria. Right? If you had one final thing to say, or, you know, a few words more to just put into the conversation as to why it is important to build this mega city that we already have, because by standard, population-wise, we're a mega city. Whether we have the infrastructure to back that title of a mega is a different ballgame entirely. And, you know, comparing mega cities like Tokyo, New York, like, I mean, there are just too many to mention. Right? So if you had one final thing to say the critical importance of why Lagos should be restored as the mega city that it ought to be. Why would you want it? I mean, what would you say, and you know, why is it important?
So my mind, Lagos State is a microcosm of Nigeria, right? And every different people from different parts of the country are here. That's one thing, and it's attracting the best minds, and the brightest risk takers are here. We owe it to our country to allow for the Lagos project to succeed, because Lagos already has so much going for it. There's so much investment that has come into Lagos State from way before any other part of Nigeria was opened up. And, you know, if we can ensure that we are creating and building the minds and skills of people in Lagos State, our human capacity, and create an environment for them to thrive, which is transportation networks, their accommodation, their education, their health. Lagos alone can turn the fortunes of Nigeria in a productive way. Right now, we talk about we are the big economy, we are this, but it is in a consumption capacity, which is we are bringing in all these containers, all these products are coming into Lagos, people are buying it, and from here it's going across Nigeria. It's not in a we are exporting, we are producing these things, we are the kings of packaging. So hibiscus is coming from Benue, and if you want to package it properly, do it in Lagos. You know, if you want to have your satellite office where all your calls can be managed and your data can be saved and all of that, go to Lagos, right? That's where we need to get to, because we need to not just create a thriving state that allows people to be able to excel and flourish. Because if there are people that, if they can do 4 meetings in a day in Lagos State, they'll be 4 times richer. But traffic does not let them do that, right? Interconnect it and allow for people that have excellence in their hearts to truly experience excellence. Nigeria will be better for it. And we need a city that is safe, that is thinking about the next 20, 30 years, not just the problems today, and a city and a state that is welcoming to everybody, which is the essence of what Lagos always was, and by God's grace always will be.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right. I mean, it has been an amazing conversation, as I'd mentioned earlier. The goal for the conversation is to paint a picture, right? I believe in finding solutions to some of the challenges that we face. And for us to build our nation, we truly must start to think forward, right? And not, not look at the problems that are in front of us, but find ways to bring conversations that would drive and probably trigger or catalyze some kind of revolution or transformation that we seek. All right, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys next week.